Hello, fourth grade. Moving on with fractions. Last time we took a look at our GCF, or our greatest common factor. Remember, that's very important when we are putting fractions in lowest terms. This is also called simplest form. You can also say you're reducing the fraction, you're putting it in simplest terms. People will use that, all of that language for the exact same thing. So we're going to call it putting the fraction in lowest terms. So our first fraction that we're going to take a look at is 6/9. So the first thing we need to do to put this in lowest terms is to figure out the factors. So we're looking for the greatest common factor between 6 and 9, the one that they both share, but we want the biggest number. So what we're taking a look at are the factors of 6 and the factors of 9. Now, those of you that have your multiplication facts really well in your head, that you've got them real quick, you probably can look at 6 and 9 and go, oh yeah, I know what that is. But if you don't, if you're sitting there going, I don't know, I'm not sure, then the best way to do it is to write out the factors of both and then to see what they share. So what times what is 6? Don't do 6 times 6, that's 36. You're thinking what times what is 6? So of course, we always start with 1 and the number. Remember, if it's only 1 and the number, that number is prime, and you probably cannot reduce it at all. But in this case, we have 1 and 6, or 6 and 1, and 3 and 2. Or 2 and 3. Remember, it doesn't matter if it's 2 times 3 or 3 times 2. Multiplication, the order doesn't matter. And I think that's it. I can't think of any others. So let's look at 9 next. Always start 1 times 9 is 9. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So in this case, we kind of have it easy because it's the same number, right? So now let's look at our factors. 6 has a factor of 1, 2, 3, and 6. 9 has a factor of 1, 3, and 9. Now you notice I didn't write the 3 twice because I don't need to, it's the same number. Okay? So looking at the factors of 6 and the factors of 9. What's the greatest common factor? What's the biggest number that they both share? And if you're looking at it, 3 here, and a 3 here, and a 1, and a 1. So they both share 1 and 3. Well, 3 is bigger, so we're going to use the 3. Remember, using the 1 doesn't really help us, because if you divide by 1, you get the exact same number. So let's take our 3, put it in our brain, and we'll move back to our original problem. So now that I know my greatest common factor is 3, I want to reduce both of these fractions, both of these numbers, by 3, because the whole thing is the fraction. So what you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. So I'm going to divide both the bottom and the top by 3. This looks a lot like what we did when we were doing equivalent fractions, except you have to divide because we're going down. So if you're going down, you have to divide. So you can think in your brain 6 divided by 3, and that's 2. Or, of course, you could think of it as 3 times what equals 6, because it's a fact family. So your 2 would go in there. Okay. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Or again, 3 times what equals 9. So you could find that missing number. And so you get 2/3. So 6/9 is reduced to 2/3. All right, let me grab my eraser real quick. And then we'll do one more so you can take a look at it. So let's do 8/14. Okay, and then we're doing lowest terms. So you're going to think in your brain, okay, 8 and 14. What are the factors of 8 and 14? Okay, so we'll come over to our board over here, and we'll think a little bit about 8 and 14. So you're thinking in your brain, what times what equals 8? So those are your factors that you're putting in place. So 1 times 8 equals 8, and then 4 times 2 also equals 8. So you have those factors. And make sure you think it through. Some of, especially these bigger numbers, have kind of sneaky ones. Like with 40 from the last video, you had 2 and 20, which is a little unusual to see. So 14 is next. So what times what equals 14? And again, we always do 1 and 14, just in case it is that big number. And then 2 and 7 equals 14. Anything else we can think of? Let's see, 3 times 4 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. No, I think that is it for 14s. So let's take a look. For 8, your factors are 1, 2, 4, and 8. And for 14, we have 1, 2, 7, and 14. So taking a look at those factors, what is the biggest factor that they both share? If you see it, it's right up front. 2 is the biggest. We talked about this today, that a number larger than one of your first fraction numbers cannot be. So of course, nothing times 14 would be 8. So you may, when you get up that high, think in your brain, oh, well, you know, I can't really use that number. So we're looking at 2. So let's take our 2 back over to this side. And because we are looking for the lowest number possible, we're going to be doing division. We're going to be bringing it down. Right? So we can think of 2 times what equals 8. That's our fact family, or 8 divided by 2 is what? And in that case, it's 4. And then we can think 14, we can think 2 times what equals 14, and in that case it is 7, or 14 divided by 2 equals 7. So our fraction in lowest terms there is 8/14 is reduced to, or put in lowest terms, it is 4/7. So that's reducing. We're going to be working on mixed numbers next. So I'll see you next time. Bye.